My sister said I was too stupid to run the family business, so I watched her face as Dad's lawyer said that he left it all to me. The color drained from her cheeks like someone had pulled a plug. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. No sound came out. Mom gripped the edge of the conference table so hard her knuckles went white. My brother-in-law actually stood up, like he might challenge the lawyer to a fight over estate law. Dad's printing company had been in our family for 34 years. 3 locations, 28 employees, steady contracts with half the businesses in our county. My sister had worked there since college, climbing from receptionist to operations manager. She knew every machine, every client, every vendor by first name. Meanwhile, I'd moved to Portland for culinary school, opened a small cafe that barely broke even, and visited home maybe twice a year. For the past decade, my sister had been telling anyone who would listen that I'd abandoned the family. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, after her 3rd glass of wine, she'd announced I had the business sense of a golden retriever. Everyone had laughed, even Mom. So when Dad got his cancer diagnosis last spring, nobody was surprised that my sister started talking about succession planning. Her role was CEO. My role was to sign whatever papers she put in front of me. Dad never talked about it with me directly. We'd have our weekly phone calls where he'd ask about the cafe and I'd ask about his chemo. 3 weeks ago, he called at 11 p.m. "I'm proud of you," he said. "You took a risk. You built something that was yours." He died 4 days later. At the funeral, my sister wore all black and oversized sunglasses like she was Jackie Kennedy. She greeted everyone, accepted casseroles, and organized the reception like a corporate event. The lawyer's office was downtown, 3rd floor of a building that smelled like old carpet. My sister arrived early with a leather portfolio. I showed up on time with nothing. The lawyer read through the legal language. Then he got to the asset distribution. To my daughter, Dad had written, "I leave my gratitude for her years of service and a severance package of $200,000. My sister's face did something strange. A smile, but wrong. To my son, the lawyer continued, "I leave controlling ownership of the company, all physical assets, and operational authority." The room went so quiet I could hear the air conditioning. "What?" My sister's voice came out like a gasp. The lawyer looked up. "I have a letter he asked me to read. To my son. You left because you wanted to build something yourself. Your sister stayed because she wanted what was already built. She's never taken a single risk. The business needs someone who understands that growth requires uncertainty. I'm betting on you." My sister stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. "This is insane. He was sick. You can't do this," she said, pointing at me. "You don't know anything about printing." She wasn't wrong. The lawyer cleared his throat. "Your father required you work together for 6 months before ownership transfers. If either refuses, the business gets sold and donated to charity." That night, my phone rang 31 times. I didn't answer. The next morning I drove to the facility. My sister's car was already there. I pulled into the spot marked owner. She was waiting in Dad's office. She'd already removed his photos. "I run operations," she said. "You stay out of my way. In 6 months, you'll sell me your shares, or we could work together." She laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "This company is my life, and you just show up and take it. I didn't ask for this." She walked past me, then stopped. "The Millerson contract is up for renewal next week. 30% of our revenue. If you screw it up, we lose everything." The door slammed. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your sister already contacted Millerson. Told them there's new ownership and suggested they explore other options." I spent the rest of that day reading the Millerson file. 186 pages of specifications, pricing history, correspondence going back 12 years. Dad had handwritten notes in the margins. Questions about their production needs, reminders about the owner's daughter's graduation, personal details that had nothing to do with printing. That's when I started to understand what my sister had never learned. Dad didn't just run a business. He built relationships. The Millerson meeting was scheduled for Wednesday at 2 p.m. I had 5 days to figure out how not to destroy everything Dad had built. My sister made sure I knew she wouldn't be there. She had a conveniently scheduled vendor audit across town. I called the unknown number back. A woman answered on the first ring. "This is Veronica," she said. "I worked in accounting for your dad for 11 years. Until your sister fired me last month for questioning an expense report. Why are you helping me? Because your dad was a good man, and your sister is not a good person." She told me everything. How my sister had been inflating costs and skimming profits for 3 years. How she'd fired anyone who got too close to noticing. How she'd convinced Dad the business was struggling when it was actually thriving. "I have the documentation," Veronica said, "if you want it." I met her at a coffee shop that evening. She brought a flash drive with 600 files, spreadsheets, emails, invoices that didn't match. A pattern so clear I couldn't believe Dad hadn't seen it. "He did see it," Veronica said quietly. "About 6 months before he died. That's when he changed his will." I went home that night and couldn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling thinking about what Veronica had told me. My sister had been stealing. From Dad. From the company. From the employees whose livelihoods depended on that business staying solvent. And she'd done it while positioning herself as the responsible one. The one who deserved everything. The next morning, I showed up at the office at 6 a.m. The building was empty except for the early production shift. I walked through the facility, really looking at it for the first time. The equipment was older than I'd realized. The break room needed updating. The bathrooms were clean but dated. This place had been Dad's whole world, and my sister had been bleeding it dry. I found the production manager, a guy named Felix who'd been with the company for 15 years. He was checking inventory sheets, coffee in one hand, pencil behind his ear. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He looked up, surprised to see me. "Sure, boss. I'm not your boss yet," I said, "but I need to know the truth. How's the company really doing?" Felix studied me for a long moment, like he was deciding whether to trust me. "Your dad was honest with us," he finally said. "Your sister isn't. We've been running on fumes for 2 years, but somehow the numbers always looked okay on paper." "What do you mean, fumes?" "We've been short-staffed, turning down jobs because we don't have the capacity. Equipment breaks down and takes weeks to get repaired because procurement says there's no budget. Meanwhile, your sister drives a car that costs more than I make in a year." He said it without anger, just stated facts. "If I took over," I said slowly, "would you stay?" "Depends," he said. "You planning to run this place like your dad did? Or like your sister does? Like my dad did?" "Then yeah," he said. "I'd stay." I spent the rest of that day talking to employees, the designers who created the layouts, the press operators who ran the machines, the customer service team who handled complaints. Every single one of them had the same story. Things had gotten worse after Dad got sick. My sister had become controlling, paranoid, cheap with everything except her own expenses. One woman, Beatrice, who ran quality control, pulled me aside. "Your dad used to walk through here every morning," she said. "Asked about our families, remembered our kids' names. When my daughter was in the hospital last year, he sent flowers. Your sister didn't even know I had a daughter." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be sorry," she said. "Just be different." The Millerson meeting came faster than I was ready for. I showed up in a suit I'd bought that morning, carrying Dad's leather briefcase that I'd found in his desk. My hands were shaking. The Millerson office was in a converted warehouse, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. Their owner, Patricia, was maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of handshake that tested you. "Your sister called me," she said immediately. "Told me your father had made a mistake, that you have no experience in this industry." "That's true," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "But my father didn't make mistakes, and I'm here to prove that." I spent the next 2 hours asking her questions. Not about printing specs or turnaround times, about her business, where she wanted to grow, what kept her up at night, what her biggest frustration was with suppliers. "My sister never asked these things," Patricia said. "She just told me what we needed." "What do you need?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair. "I need a partner," she said. "Not just a vendor, someone who understands that my business changes and can adapt with me." "That's what my dad was," I said. "A partner. Can you be that?" "I can try." She studied me for what felt like forever. "Your sister is very good at her job," she finally said. "Efficient, reliable, everything runs like clockwork." But I don't trust her," Patricia said. "Never have. There's something about her that feels like she's always calculating, always working an angle." She pulled out a contract. "I'm signing with you for 3 years," she said. "But if you turn into your sister, I'm gone." "I won't," I said. "We'll see," she said. When I got back to the office, my sister was waiting in the parking lot. Her face was red, like she'd been crying or screaming. "What did you do?" she demanded. "I renewed the contract. That's impossible." "Patricia called me this morning. She was ready to walk. She changed her mind." My sister's expression went from shock to something darker. Calculation. "You're sabotaging me," she said. "You're trying to make me look incompetent so you can justify stealing my company." "It's not your company," I said quietly. "It never was." She slapped me, hard enough that my head snapped to the side, hard enough that I tasted blood. I stood there, hand to my cheek, watching her realize what she'd done. The security camera above us had caught everything. "Get out of my way," she hissed, and stormed past me into the building. I didn't move for a full minute, just stood there tasting copper and trying to process what had just happened. My sister had hit me, in a parking lot, on camera. Part of me wanted to call the police. Part of me wanted to go inside and fire her on the spot. But mostly I just felt sad. Sad that it had come to this. Sad that she'd become someone capable of violence when things didn't go her way. I got in my car and drove to Dad's grave. Hadn't been there since the funeral. The headstone was simple, just his name and dates and beloved father. I sat on the grass and talked to him like he could hear me. "I don't know what I'm doing," I said. "I don't know how to run a business. I don't know how to handle employees or contracts or any of this, and my sister hates me. Mom hates me. Everyone thinks you made a mistake." The wind picked up, rustling the trees above me. "I wish you were here," I said. "I wish you could tell me what to do." But he wasn't there, and I was alone with a company I didn't know how to run and a family that wanted me to fail. I went home that night and didn't sleep. Just sat at my kitchen table going through the files Veronica had given me. The evidence was damning. My sister had created fake vendors, approved invoices for services never rendered, and transferred money to accounts only she controlled. $340,000 over 3 years. The cafe I'd built in Portland, the one my sister had mocked, had taught me to read financial statements. I might not know printing, but I knew when numbers didn't add up. By morning, I had a plan. I called an emergency board meeting. We didn't technically have a board, but Dad's will had established one. Me, Mom, and two of Dad's oldest business associates, Harvey and Guadalupe. They'd known Dad since he started the company. We met in the conference room at 9 a.m. My sister wasn't invited. I laid out everything. The fake vendors, the inflated costs, the missing money. I played recordings Veronica had made of my sister instructing her to falsify reports. I showed emails where my sister had threatened employees who asked questions. Mom sat silent the whole time, her face getting paler and paler. When I finished, Harvey spoke first. "How long have you known about this?" "Since last week," I said. "And you're sure it's her?" Guadalupe asked. "I'm sure." Mom finally found her voice. "This is ridiculous," she said. "Your sister would never—" "Mom," I interrupted. "The evidence is right here. You can see it yourself. You're just trying to discredit her so you can take over completely." "I already took over," I said. "Dad made sure of that. This isn't about power. This is about theft." Harvey leaned forward. "What do you want to do?" I thought about that question all night. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? To destroy my sister the way she'd tried to destroy me? No. I want the money back, I said. All of it. And I want her out of the company. Permanently. "You want to fire your own sister?" Mom said. "After everything she's done for this family?" "After everything she's stolen from this family," I corrected. The vote was 3-1. Mom voted to give my sister another chance. Everyone else voted to accept my terms. I called my sister that afternoon. She answered immediately. "We need to talk," I said. "I'm busy, it's not optional." She showed up an hour later. I'd asked Harvey and Guadalupe to sit in as witnesses. My sister walked in like she owned the place, saw them and froze. "What is this?" "Sit down," I said. She remained standing. "I know about the money," I said. "All of it. The fake vendors, the inflated costs, everything." Her face didn't change, didn't even flicker. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pushed a folder across the table. She didn't touch it. "That's every transaction, every email, every piece of evidence showing you stole $340,000 from this company over 3 years. Her jaw tightened. "You have 2 options, I said. "Pay it back and resign. Or I file criminal charges and you go to prison. You wouldn't dare. Try me." We stared at each other across that table. Years of resentment and competition and family dysfunction compressed into a single moment. She picked up the folder, flipped through it. Her hands were shaking. "You have 30 days, I said. "Every penny. Or I call the police." She threw the folder back at me. Papers scattered everywhere. "You self-righteous prick," she said. "You think you're so much better than me? You abandoned this family. I stayed. I worked. I built this company while you were playing chef in Portland. You stole from this company," I said, "while Dad was dying. That shut her up." "Get out," I said. "Clean out your desk. You're done here." She stood there for another moment, like she might argue. Then she turned and walked out. I didn't see her for the next month. She didn't clean out her desk, just disappeared. Mom called me every day, begging me to reconsider, to give my sister another chance, to remember that family was supposed to forgive. I stopped answering after the first week. 29 days after I gave her the ultimatum, a courier arrived at the office. Cashier's check for $340,000. No note. I deposited it that afternoon. Then I called a company-wide meeting. All 28 employees crammed into the break room. They knew something was happening. Rumors had been circulating for weeks. I stood in front of them and told the truth. "My sister is no longer with the company," I said. "She resigned for personal reasons. I want to thank her for her years of service." It was a lie, but it was a kinder lie than the truth. "Moving forward," I said, "things are going to change. We're going to invest in new equipment. We're going to hire the people we need. We're going to treat this place like the valuable business it is. And I'm going to need your help, because I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm willing to learn." A few people laughed. Most just looked skeptical. Felix raised his hand. "How do we know you're not just like her?" "Fair question," I said. "You don't. But I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove I'm different." The meeting ended without applause, without enthusiasm. Just people going back to work, waiting to see if I'd follow through. I promoted Veronica to CFO that afternoon. Hired a new operations manager named Claudia, who'd worked at our biggest competitor. Started weekly check-ins with department heads where I asked more questions than I answered. The first month was brutal. I worked 80-hour weeks trying to understand every aspect of the business. The machines, the clients, the contracts, the margins. I made mistakes constantly, approved orders we couldn't fulfill, underestimated production times, forgot to follow up on client emails. But I kept showing up, kept asking questions, kept trying. Slowly, things started to shift. The employees stopped treating me like an intruder, started offering suggestions, started believing I might actually care. 3 months in, we landed the Henderson account, a national retail chain that needed printing services for 200 stores. It was the biggest contract in company history. I celebrated by buying pizza for the whole staff. Nothing fancy, just pizza. Felix pulled me aside after. "You're doing okay," he said. "Not great, but okay." Coming from him, it felt like a standing ovation. 6 months after Dad died, I held the ownership transfer meeting with the lawyer. The 6-month working requirement had been fulfilled. The company was officially mine. Mom didn't attend, sent a text instead. I hope you're happy. You destroyed your sister and stole her life. I didn't respond. My brother-in-law sent a longer message, full of legal threats about undue influence and mental incapacity. I forwarded it to our attorney, who said it had no merit. My sister sent nothing. I sat in that lawyer's office and signed the papers that made me the sole owner of my father's company. It should have felt triumphant, victorious. Instead, it just felt heavy. That night, I went back to Dad's grave. It was raining. I didn't care. I did it, I said. The company's mine. We're actually growing, making money. The employees don't hate me anymore. The rain kept falling, but I lost my family, I said. Mom won't talk to me. My sister's gone. I'm completely alone. I sat there in the mud and the rain and cried for the first time since this whole thing started. Not sad tears, not happy tears, just exhausted tears. The kind that come when you've been holding everything together for so long that you forget what falling apart feels like. When I finally drove home, soaked and shivering, there was a car in my driveway. My sister's car. She was sitting on my porch, hunched against the rain. I almost drove away, almost kept going and never looked back. But I didn't. I parked and walked up to her. What are you doing here? I asked. She looked up. Her eyes were red. I wanted to apologize, she said. I waited. I stole from Dad, she continued. I lied to everyone. I tried to destroy you, and I'm sorry. The rain soaked both of us. Why did you do it? I asked. Because I was terrified, she said. Terrified that I wasn't good enough, that Dad would see through me and realize I wasn't as smart as everyone thought. So I controlled everything, every detail, every dollar. And when that wasn't enough, I started taking money because it made me feel powerful. She stood up. You were right about me, she said. I never took a risk. I just maintained what Dad built, and I resented you for being brave enough to leave. I don't know what to say, I said. You don't have to say anything, she said. I just wanted you to know. I'm getting help. Therapy. I got a job in Denver. Fresh start. She walked toward her car, then stopped. Dad's letter was right, she said. You were the right choice. I see that now. She drove away. I stood in the rain for another 10 minutes trying to process what had just happened. My sister had apologized. Actually, apologized. It didn't fix anything. Didn't erase what she'd done. But it was something. The business kept growing. We opened a 4th location after 2 years. Started offering services we'd never considered before. Digital printing, large format, custom packaging. I hired a business coach named Rochelle who'd built and sold 3 companies. She taught me things Dad never knew. Systems, processes, how to scale without losing quality, how to lead without being a tyrant. The employees started calling me by my first name instead of boss, started inviting me to their kids' birthday parties, started treating me like I belonged. 5 years after Dad died, we had 7 locations and 95 employees. Revenue had quadrupled. We'd won industry awards, been featured in trade publications. I should have felt successful, should have felt like I'd proven everyone wrong. Instead, I just felt tired. I was in Dad's old office, now my office, when Veronica knocked on the door. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, just thinking. About? Whether any of this matters. She sat down across from me. You've built something incredible, she said. You know that, right? I guess. You don't sound convinced. I thought this would feel different, I said. I thought if I succeeded, if I proved I could do this, it would feel like winning. But mostly it just feels like I'm running in place. That's because you're measuring the wrong things, she said. What do you mean? You're measuring against your sister, against your mom's expectations, against what you think your dad wanted. But you're not measuring what actually matters, which is whether you're proud of yourself. I thought about that for a long time after she left. Was I proud? I'd taken a failing business and turned it around. I'd learned an entire industry from scratch. I'd earned the respect of people who had every reason to doubt me. But I'd also lost my family, worked myself to exhaustion, sacrificed relationships and personal time and any semblance of normal life. Was it worth it? I didn't know. That weekend I drove to Portland, visited my old cafe. It was under new ownership now. They'd changed the menu, the decor, everything. The new owner, a woman named Iris, recognized me. You're the guy who started this place, right? Yeah, I said. It's a good space, she said. Good bones. I've been able to build on what you created. I'm glad, I said. She poured me a coffee on the house. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. Do you regret selling? Every day, I said. And also, never. She laughed. That makes sense somehow. I sat in my old cafe, drinking coffee made by someone else, and thought about the 2 lives I'd lived. The one where I'd risked everything to build something small and meaningful, and the one where I'd inherited something big and broken and fixed it. Both felt incomplete somehow. I drove back home that night and did something I hadn't done in 5 years. I called my mom. She answered on the first ring. Hello? Hey, Mom. It's me. Silence. I know you're still angry, I said. I know you think I destroyed my sister, but I need you to hear something. I'm listening, she said carefully. Dad didn't leave me the business to hurt her, I said. He left it to me because he knew what it needed. And he was right. The company is thriving. The employees are happy. We're doing good work. Your sister lost everything, Mom said. My sister stole $340,000 and got away with paying it back, I said. That's not losing everything. That's getting off easy. She was silent for a long moment. I miss him, she finally said. Me too, I said. Do you ever wonder if we're all just disappointing him? Every single day. She laughed. It was a sad sound. Maybe we should have coffee sometime, she said. I'd like that. We didn't fix everything in that phone call. Didn't suddenly become close again. But it was a start. My sister and I started texting occasionally. Nothing deep, just updates. She'd gotten engaged to someone she met in Denver. Seemed happy in her messages. Lighter somehow. I sent her a congratulations text when she told me. She sent back, thank you. And thank you for not destroying me when you could have. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just sent, you destroyed yourself. I just gave you the chance to rebuild. She replied, fair. The business kept growing. We brought on a CEO 3 years ago, someone with actual experience who could take us to the next level. I stayed on as chairman, focused on strategy instead of operations. It gave me my life back. I started dating someone I met at a business conference, took actual vacations, rediscovered hobbies I'd abandoned. Last month I got a letter from Dad's lawyer. Apparently, Dad had left one more thing in his will, a letter to be opened 10 years after his death. I met the lawyer at his office, same building that smelled like old carpet. He handed me an envelope, sealed with wax. Inside was a single page. If you're reading this, 10 years have passed since I died. I have no idea what's happened in that decade. Whether the company survived, whether you and your sister reconciled, whether I made the right choice. But I want you to know something. I didn't give you the business because I thought you'd run it perfectly. I gave it to you because I knew you'd care about the people, the employees, the clients, the community. Your sister cared about control, about being right, about winning. You cared about building something that mattered. That's the difference between management and leadership. I'm proud of you, son. Not because of what you accomplished, but because of who you became in the process of accomplishing it. Whatever happened with your sister, with your mom, with the family, I hope you found peace. I hope you found yourself. And I hope you learned what took me 60 years to figure out. Success isn't about how much you win. It's about how much you're willing to lose for what you believe in. Love always, Dad. I read that letter 5 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my wallet. That night I called everyone. My sister, my mom, my employees, my girlfriend. I told them all the same thing. I loved them. I was grateful for them. And I was sorry for the times I'd chosen work over relationships. Most of them thought I was having a breakdown. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was finally having a breakthrough. 10 years after Dad died, I stood in the main facility and looked around. The equipment was state-of-the-art now. The break room had been renovated. The bathrooms were beautiful. But the real change wasn't in the building. It was in the people. Employees who'd stayed and grown. Clients who'd become partners. A community that had rallied around a business that cared about more than just profit. Felix walked up beside me. Penny for your thoughts, he said. I was just thinking about my dad, I said. About whether he'd be proud. He'd be proud, Felix said. Trust me. How do you know? Because I knew him, Felix said. And he cared about one thing more than anything else. Whether the people around him were better off because he existed. And we are, Felix said simply. All of us. Because of what you built here. I didn't build it, I said. Dad built it. No, Felix said. Your dad started it. You built it. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the production floor hum with activity. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister. Mom told me about Dad's letter. I'm happy for you. Truly. I texted back. Thank you. I'm happy for you too. She replied, we should have coffee sometime. I'd like that, I wrote. And I meant it. Because somewhere along the way, I'd learned what Dad tried to teach me. Success isn't about beating everyone else. It's about becoming the best version of yourself. Even if it takes 10 years. Even if it costs you everything. Even if nobody ever knows how hard you fought to get there. The work continues. The business grows. The relationships heal. And somewhere I like to think Dad is watching. Nodding. Saying what he always said when I showed him something I'd made. That's my boy. I knew you had it in you.